Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May I have your attention, please? All quiet, please. Thank you. So here we are. We've got a lecture for you today dealing with our unit on nation building challenges in the Americas. Last time we dealt with the constitutional challenge and in the United States of America. And the resolution was to create a stronger national government. Wow. With a constitution, and we had elected our first president of the United States. And so we're going to be following the United States in its early years in this next challenge. If you take your notes and turn to page 2, you want to follow these very, very closely. What we're going to be looking at is the events leading up to and including the War of 1812, which took place in 1812 and 1813 and 1814, and it actually there was peace by the end of 1814, but then there was still a battle in 1815 in this war. So we're going to be looking at the War of 1812. So have your notes, have page 2, and we got a presentation for you. And also, as you can see, there's going to be a video that you want to watch. Definitely want to watch. This is from the perspective of Canada's view of the War of 1812. So we're not just looking at things from the American point of view. We're going to see that the War of 1812 was a big, big deal for Canada, which at that time was controlled by the British. And so, yeah, so let's kind of pick up where we were and just kind of take you through this. So let me see, we had the American Constitution, okay? And we had our first presidential election. So who was elected? Not John Hanson, George Washington. George Washington was the first president of the United States under the Constitution. And I want to share something with you guys. When I was in high school, actually when I was in junior high, I was very interested in history and so forth. And I also like to do drawings. Yes, you know about the drawings. And I actually found, looking through my old stuff, something that I'll share. I don't have a whole wall full of pictures of presidents of the United States, but I have a whole collection of my drawings of presidents of the United States, starting when I was like 14 years old. So whatever, here they are. Some of them are, I mean, they are what they are. Yeah. Anyway, there we go. Here's our first president of the United States, drawn by me a long, long, long time ago. There we go. You can see that. George Washington. This was from a book that I had of all of the official portraits of the presidents of the United States. So George Washington served for 8 years, president of the United States. And then they wanted him to serve even more. And he's like, no, we don't need to do that. We need to, you guys need to not have like, you know, a king or some kind of a dictator and so forth, you know, move along. Who was the second president of the United States? Remember him? John Adams. Sit down, John, from Massachusetts. And he served for 4 years, ran for another 4, but was defeated by his old buddy and rival at times from the state of Virginia. And that would be Thomas Jefferson. Da, 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 da. Let's see, I did that one in 1978. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I went to the same college as he did. Not the same year. Not even close. There was a lot of years in between. Years. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson. So he served for 8 years as president of the United States. And as we look into today's story, we're going to be looking at this one, James Madison, also from Virginia, friend of Thomas Jefferson's. Didn't live too far away from there. There you go. There's James Madison. And yeah, he's going to be the president of the United States during the time of the War of 1812. Okay, so let's get to that. Let's see what we got here. Let's get to some video or some PowerPoint. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. Liberty. We saw the last episode of that. Yes, yes. On how we got the United States Constitution. So what you need to know, and you definitely need to write down, is the fact that the United States of America in our very early years was weak, very weak. So weak, how weak was it? Well, we all decided that we wanted to stick together in spite of our differences, and create a stronger national military, stronger national government, so that if we ever did get into a fight with some big old country, we would be able to prevail, or at least not get completely destroyed. As it turns out, that's exactly what's going to happen. So as we go into the early 1800s, let's tap into what you guys already know going on in the world scene. There was war, big war in Europe between France under Napoleon and pretty much all the other many of the other countries in the world, or in Europe certainly. And the British were on the other side. In fact, some of you guys remember in the movie Amazing Grace when William Wilberforce was trying to get the slave trade abolished and so forth, and he wasn't having much luck because everyone's attention was focusing on the war with France, and when it looked like he was trying to get rid of the slave trade, looks like he was helping France, da 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 da. But then eventually the British did better, and they ultimately decided that they were going to try the trick. Remember that trick? Remember that? That was where they, the British indicated that, hey, you know what we could do to get rid of the slave trade, sneaky, 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 is allow British privateers, pirates, to legally attack and take control of any ship flying a neutral flag. Well, what country would be flying neutral flags? What if you were shipping, you know, what flag would you fly that was a country that was neutral, that's presumably then everyone would leave alone? That was the United States. Make sure you have that in your notes. We tried to stay out of the wars between Britain and France. And there were people in America that were sympathetic to Britain because, you know, we were originally founded by the British. And there were people who were sympathetic to France because, hey, France helped us out in the American Revolution. But mostly, you know, following Washington's advice, we tried to stay out of that war. But here's the problem. There really were American ships, and they were getting taken over. They were getting boarded. They were getting commandeered. Make sure you have that written down. And it was really, really irritating Americans. The British particularly. I mean, the British were saying, oh yeah, whatever, you know, you got British people who were serving as sailors on American vessels, and we've just drafted them into the British Navy. America's like, you are completely violating the rights of the United States of America. We're non-combatant. And we were getting really, really, really upset. Like, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to take on Britain? I mean, seriously? Yeah, we are. And what year? In 1812. That's when the war begins, when the United States declares war on Britain in 1812. And let's take a look and see how that actually played out. We'll be coming back to this now because we're going to be seeing lots of fighting going on up here in the British-controlled area of Canada. We'll see some fighting going along the coast. Oh my gosh, do the British still have a big navy compared to the United States? Yeah, they're going to just pop in. I don't know, oh, look here, look at this little arrow. We got the British coming up the Chesapeake Bay. Oh man, what are they possibly? Oh, they're going to come to Washington, D.C. and burn down the White House and the Capitol building and go up to Baltimore and attack Fort McHenry. Oh, say, can you see on the map what is going to happen in that battle? Well, we're going to check that one out because that one's near the end of the war. Oh, wait, there's another battle going on way down here in New Orleans. So we've got some interesting things going on as we play out the War of 1812. But first, we have to decide, like, how is this actually going to take place? Well, you've got, there we go. There's the president, real official painting and so forth, of James Madison and his First Lady, Dolly Madison. We've got her in there as well because, remember I mentioned the White House is going to be burned down? And as the Madisons are, you know, getting out so they don't get burned, Dolly Madison actually organizes a very, very good thing. She organizes the relocation of a lot of paintings and other important artifacts from the White House. Otherwise, they would have been burned. So, way to go, Dolly Madison. There were people in the United States Congress. You're going to hear a lot about Henry Clay from here on out for the rest of the semester. He was a senator from the state of Kentucky, and they called him a war hawk. Let me see. hawk versus dove. Well, we got the war right in front of the hawk, which gives you an indication that he wanted the United States to go to war with Britain because we were being violated. Our ships were being commandeered, and yeah, we needed to retaliate against them. And frankly, when the United States Congress, the House and the Senate passed a declaration of war, James Madison was like, okay, I'm the commander-in-chief, and Congress has declared war. And that would have been officially June 1812. Former president, Thomas Jefferson, was like, I think we're going to win because we can beat them. I mean, like, what the heck? The British have a huge navy and they got a very powerful army. And really, we're going to be able to beat them? Well, consider this. Where was the largest concentration of the British fleet? Was it in the Atlantic, blockading the 13 United States? Actually, there's several more United States, but the United States of America? Was there massive army located in Canada? No. Write it down. In the early stages of the War of 1812, pretty much throughout the end of 1812 and into 1813, the British are going to focus their main military attention in Europe. They're trying to defeat Napoleon. Will they defeat Napoleon? There's no spoilers. We already know that. Napoleon, lost. He had defeated most of Europe, and then he attacked Canada, and then winter, and that didn't go off very well. And then he was captured and stuck on an island. He escaped from the island. He came back to France, and he raised another army. And they were sticking him in the South Atlantic. So make note of this. As Napoleon ultimately is finally defeated, the British are going to be able to turn more attention over to that battle, that fight with the United States of America. And in fact, Washington, D.C. gets burned after the British are able to send more of their Navy and Army over to the United States of America. That's going to really put a lot of pressure on the United States of America to figure out a way to end the war. And by the way, spoilers, it is going to be kind of a tie. The War of 1812 is a tie. The British don't gain anything. The United States doesn't gain anything. They both agree to stop fighting. But it isn't as though we didn't try. And as we go through the story of the War of 1812, we'll tell you about what the United States did to try to gain advantage, certainly in the early stages, and how that actually does play out. Okay? So yeah, we're going to have lots of war. We're going to be focusing primarily on the battles going on right up here, because this is British-controlled Canada. And there's, in the green, there's the United States of America. Over here, if you can kind of see over here in the orange, that's Louisiana Territory. Lewis and Clark go trundling along through there under orders of President Jefferson. I mean, did they get to Idaho? Sacagawea? Yeah, they did. So this is territory yet to be, the Louisiana Territory is yet to be sort of like organized. We bought it from Napoleon because he needed money to fight a war that he ultimately is going to lose. But nevertheless, what kind of advantages, what kind of situation is there going to be as we go into this war? Well, the British, for their side, they are going to have this written down. The British, as I mentioned to you, don't have that big of an army in Canada. They have British settlers. They also have French settlers, what they're called the Canadiens. And they were the French speakers there that that arrived when France was in control of a bunch of Canada. And are they really going to be loyal? Who else could the British call upon to help fight? Well, as it turns out, here's part of the answer. Tecumseh is a leader of the Shawnee, one of the Native American tribes that doesn't like any Europeans there, but they really don't like the United States of America. And the United States of America, as you can imagine, they're like, oh, we got all this territory and we're going to, establish it as territory. They're going to establish it as states. We're going to move all kinds of people in here. Remember this territory all the way through here? British gave that to us at the end of the American Revolution. And right here in Indiana, there was a big fight at Tippecanoe, the battle. This is before the War of 1812. This is 1811. And you have William Henry Harrison, guy right here, William Henry Harrison, who was in a fight for the American forces with Tecumseh, and we ultimately win that. In fact, William Henry Harrison, years later, is going to run for president of the United States, and he's going to be quite a bit of an older man by that time. Let's see if I can find my little dilly up here. He's going to be quite a bit of an older man, and yeah, and he runs for president of the United States. There we go, and he's elected. His slogan is Tippecanoe and Tyler too. Tippecanoe being, hey, he was the general in the big victory at Tippecanoe. Who the heck is Tyler? Oh yeah, here we go. This is like one of the first ones I ever did. This is a little bit of the difference. There's Tyler. Do we know much about Tyler? Was he a big general or anything? No, he was the vice presidential running mate. So what happened? This guy, William Henry Harrison, didn't wrap up properly and got really sick. It was really cold when he was giving his inaugural address when he became president of the United States, got sick and died a month later. So Tyler ended up serving the remaining, 3 years, 11 months of William Henry Harrison's presidential term. So yeah, that was my very first drawing. It's a little rough. It's cool. All right. Tippecanoe Tyler too. Let's get back to the share. Okay. So make sure you put that down. On the British side, they're going to have as allies Native Americans. We saw this as well during the American Revolution. Quite a few Native American tribes are like, man, we don't like the United States. Those guys just get bigger and bigger. They push us out of our areas. And so, yeah, those are going to be some of the key allies of the British. Okay. So as we go through here, you can see we've got, let's see, fourth bullet point. Oh yeah, let's get into the battles. It's going to be all these different battles going on here. Okay. Can the United States, can we conquer Canada? Former President Jefferson says, it's just a mere matter of marching. All we have to do is march our great, powerful, amazing army in there. The British aren't going to be able to stop us. There's hardly any British army there. There's just like Canadian militia and some native tribes and who knows what. Yeah. So let's take a look at this map here. We're going to see, I'll take you through the series of battles, right? We got the Detroit, Queenston Heights, Lake Erie, the Thames, Chateauguay, Chrysler Farm, Lundy's Lane, and Fort McHenry. And then finally, the Battle of New Orleans, okay, which is going to be the one in 1815 that's actually fought after the war is over. But, the cell phone coverage was down, and we didn't realize that the treaty had been signed back in Europe as the American and British forces were getting ready to fight in New Orleans in January of 1815. So let's start with the first battle. This is the battle at Fort Detroit. Okay, so here we go. There's Detroit, located there in Michigan, the territory of Michigan, soon to be the state of Michigan. We got a fort. It's the United States fort. We have located in the fort, let me see, who is going to head up? Our forces are headed up by General William Hull. All right, General William Hull, well done. You got a decent sized army. In fact, I think we've got about 2,500 U.S. soldiers there. Write that down, 2,500 U.S. soldiers. And they're planning on marching right across, go across the water here, the narrow place, and go up into Canada. Now, you're going to learn this. When we talk about Canada here, sometimes we're going to refer to Upper and Lower Canada, okay? Now you think, oh, which one's Upper Canada versus Lower Canada? You're like, well, that's the upper part of the map, and that's the lower part of the map. As it turns out, this right here is Upper Canada. That is Lower Canada by Montreal, the French-speaking area. And the reason is because of the elevation. This is a higher elevation right here, and the water flows this way past Niagara Falls, and then all the way to the St. Lawrence Seaway, and off into the Atlantic Ocean. So the United States is planning an attack against the British from Fort Detroit with General William Hull. Go Americans. And the Canadians, led by General, let's get that name down. Yeah, it was Isaac Brock, the British General Isaac Brock. he has 300 British soldiers, okay? And he's got about 400 Canadian militia. And of course, one thing he does is he tries to like make his militia look like they're better soldiers than they are by giving them regular British Army uniforms. So it looks maybe like they've got 700 British. And then they got about 600 native forces together, right? So obviously you can see there's an advantage to the Americans. And the Americans are thinking about getting ready to attack, but lo and behold, Fort Detroit, there is going to be a battle. And the battle is going to take place August 16th, 1812, at Fort Detroit. The British, the small number of British, and their Canadian militia and native forces, they attack Fort Detroit. They're attacking Fort Detroit. They line up cannons and so forth, and they got the natives going, whoop, 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 we're going to kill you, we're going to get you, and you better surrender, otherwise you're all going to die. And if you don't surrender, oh my gosh, I mean, it's like, what the heck? I mean, this is like after about an hour of shelling, you know, you're inside the fort and so forth, you know, it's like, what the heck? You know how this is going to play out, right? You know, you're in the fort, so those guys can waste their cannonballs against you, but it's a bad sign of the way things are going to go for the War of 1812. After about an hour or so, you'll see this in the film. The Canadians in their history love pointing out the Americans surrendered at the Battle of Fort Detroit. It's not even a battle. I mean, we surrendered after about an hour or so. It's pathetic. President Madison was furious. Like, what are you kidding? We barely started this war and we lost an entire US Army without like even like a real battle going on. What the heck? Maybe the Americans will do better in the second battle. Let's go ahead and line that one up. Okay. The Battle of Queenston Heights, right, where you've got the another U.S. general, General Winfield Scott, okay, and he's going to go up against the British general Isaac Brock. Again, he's got some British forces, he's got a lot of Canadian militia, but he doesn't quite have the forces yet that he needs. Okay, so here we come. We come charging across Queenston Heights. It's just not too far from the Niagara Falls. You can see right here. Okay, so you got the big Lake Erie, you got big Lake Ontario, and you got this waterway going through here. So you could actually cross over in a bunch of boats, which is what we do. We attack. So we're going to be attacking through there. And let me see how many people. Oh, we got about 1,200 attacking across the Niagara River at Queenston Heights. And we give it a good fight, and we're pushing this way, and we're pushing that way, and it looks like we're going to win. I'm like, gosh, we're going to be like fighting these guys, and no, we lose again. Isaac Brock beats us again in the Battle of Queenston Heights. I mean, they've got, what is it? What is the problem? I mean, here's the thing. They had like 80 Mohawk forces on their side, and they fought really, really well. And they helped to turn the tide against the American forces. And of course, there was one thing that the Canadians are like really, really not too happy about that battle. We sniped him. United States soldiers sniped Brock. Brock got shot, killed. Yeah, it happens. We saw that in the American Revolution, and we see it happen again. If a general is standing out, that can be seen quite well, he is going to be endangered. Okay, very much so. Next battle. Oh, the Battle of Lake Erie. They don't talk about that as much in the film. Battle of Lake Erie, it's very interesting. It's a naval battle. The United States has some Navy in Lake Erie. We don't do too much in the Atlantic Ocean as far as the United States Navy. The British are pretty effective at blockading our ports and so forth. But a naval battle in Lake Erie is going to be won by the United States of America. The Battle of Lake Erie. You can write that one down. September, so this is the following year, 1813. this is actually fairly significant because now we have control of Lake Erie, and it allows us to be able to bring forces across Lake Erie where we want to. So the British commander at that time, the new British commander, is Henry Proctor. Do you see his name listed there? And he is not too excited about getting caught behind American forces, say, potentially gathering over here in Michigan, crossing over here, maybe coming across Lake Erie, and he doesn't want to be surrounded. So you can put this down. We've got the British General Proctor, Henry Proctor, is going to be doing a retreat. Well, it's an interesting thing because by that time, the native forces, particularly led by Tecumseh, all right, the very effective Native American commander, Tecumseh, is not too excited about that, and you'll hear about that in the film. He's like, "What the heck, you coward! What are you doing? You British allies used to stand and fight. Of course, the British are thinking, the British and Canadians are thinking, well, maybe we should just like get out of here so we'll be in a better position to fight." And in fact, this time when we invade across Lake Erie, we're going to be bringing with us General William Henry Harrison, the one who squared off against Tecumseh at the Battle of Tippecanoe in 1811. And William Henry Harrison leading American forces in the Battle of the Thames. The Thames is a river. You see right here, it's a river that's kind of floats along here in Upper Canada. And that's going to take place in October of 1813. We win. We being the United States of America, right? Because I'm an American, so we actually win. William Henry Harrison, there was a reason why he was elected president of the United States. People looked at him and said, wow, this guy can win. He was an effective general. Forget those other guys. And we do. We win. And actually, it's a very, very big victory in the sense that one of the top commanders of the opposition force is killed, and that's Tecumseh. Although, in fairness, United States had a lot of respect for Tecumseh. In fact, many years later, there was a man, a baby, that was given Tecumseh as his middle name, William Tecumseh Sherman. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. You will when we get to the American Civil War. One of the top Union generals was William Tecumseh Sherman, middle name after the great Shawnee chief Tecumseh. Okay, so you're going to be checking that one out. Can the United States make additional advantage? I mean, we had Harrison with 5,000 men pushing the British back out of Upper Canada. Can we push them all the way back up here? Can we defeat the Lower Canadian forces up here in Montreal? Can we do it before, I don't know, Napoleon blows it in Europe, and then the British are like, oh, we can go over to Canada. We can beat those Americans off. Will that take place? Well, let's see how this plays out. We're going to see a couple of battles taking place in short succession. You see this? The Battle of Chateauguay and the Battle of Chrysler's Farm. Okay, you see that in your notes? October 26, 1813 for Chateauguay, and then Chrysler's Farm on November 11th, 1813. And they don't have it really well marked up here, but it's right here up in the area around Montreal, what is known as Lower Canada. The United States has a two-prong attack, right? The idea is we're going to move in, our first force is 4,000 US soldiers going up against the defenders, mostly Canadians, I mind you, at Chateauguay, right? And we're going to be pressing there, and then we'll like meet up with the other part, and like have a pincer move, and just like crush them, and yeah, go America. Okay, so let's take a look. Let me see how many the British Canadian. There was a few hundred Canadians. Okay, well we can beat a few hundred Canadians because we got 4,000 US soldiers. So the Battle of Chateauguay, go United States. We write it down. We lose. You'll see it in the film. The Canadians have it in their film, and this is like, right? Do you think it's going to be much different in the second one, Chrysler's Farm? The other U.S. force, the second part, we got 1 fail, 2. both failures. 1813. The United States. Most Americans don't know that we tried to take over Canada. We tried to do it in the American Revolution, and we tried to do it again in the War of 1812. I mean, we tried several different times. And ultimately, it doesn't work out. Yeah, I mean, by 1814, let's look at another battle that takes place. Here we go, the Battle of Lundy's Lane. Okay, this is July of 1814. We make another effort to help defeat the British and the Canadian forces, and fail again. We can't do it. The United States is not able to do it. And it's very interesting because there's this one character, write his name down, Joseph Wilcox, and they talk about him in the film. Now, Joseph Wilcox, if this was an American-made film, we might, kind of lean in that direction. We might say, hey, look, this guy's cool. He realizes to support the United States of America, and so he joins our forces, and he's fighting on our side. He's great. Well, the Canadians don't see him that way. They see him as a traitor. And when they win the Battle of Lundy's Lane, they grab hold of whatever traitors, people who had turned to the American cause, and they hang them. Joseph Wilcox gets away, but he is a villain and a traitor, a Benedict Arnold, from the perspective of the Canadians. This is very interesting because the Canadians did a lot to defend Canada when the British weren't able to send a lot of soldiers over. And it really helped to solidify this idea that they are a separate group of people. And while some of them may have considered maybe they should join the United States of America, but when the United States of America isn't just like, hey, join us, they're going, hey, you will join us. We're just going to force you into our country. It doesn't work out that way. And they've got a very, very solid identity of being not the United States. Okay, that is a big thing that came out of this. And we'll be looking more at Canadian history as we go forward because it's very, very interesting stuff. But you can see the War of 1812 was a big, big deal when it comes to the Canadians. And they also love hockey because when they can play us in hockey, they love beating us in hockey because that's like their big sport. We like hockey too, and sometimes we win, but not as often. But yeah, the Canadians, the British, in the War of 1812, they keep us out of Canada. So that is a big, big victory for them. As you look at the remaining battles, let me see. Oh, right, we mentioned that. You see right down here. Whoops. The British send in the summer of 1814. They send in a fleet with soldiers. They land. They fight the Americans. They go charging into Washington, D.C. They burn the Capitol. They burn the White House. They bring up their Navy, and they go after Fort McHenry. And I'll tell you more about the Battle of Fort McHenry. Ultimately, they try to take it over, and, we withstand it. They're bombarding it, rockets, red glare, and bombs bursting in there. And will our flag still be there? Oh, say, can you see? Our flag will still be there by the end of that battle. And that's going to be one of the last battles that take place in the war. You can write it down. We have, and I'll tell you the story about how Francis Scott Key, an American, happened to be on a ship. It's kind of like, he wasn't exactly imprisoned and so forth, but he was on a ship, a British ship, watching the thing, and he's going to write a very spectacular thing called, let me see, oh, there it is, the Star-Spangled Banner. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and broad stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets were glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night. Our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free, the home of the brave? It does. Anyways, that was a win for us, and the fact that we were able to survive. Key thing, though, we reached a treaty, the Treaty of Ghent, which was done in the city of Ghent in Europe, and that was arrived at, signed December 25th, 1814. The war is officially over. Both sides walk away from the fight. No land is exchanged. A little bit of an issue, though, because we're going to have the Battle of New Orleans, and we'll get into some more detail on that one later. We've got Andrew Jackson, who's the American commander, actually beats the British. And of course, it took place in January 8th, 1815. No way for them to know as they were heading toward this battle that the war had actually concluded. So there's Andrew Jackson. Yeah, got Andrew Jackson. Yeah, there we go. I can show you Andrew Jackson. Can you see that? Yeah. Ooh, there he is. Andrew Jackson. We'll talk more about Andrew Jackson. Yeah, he was a victorious general. So we had two victorious generals in the War of 1812, and they both went on to become president of the United States. Hull, the guy that surrendered after like about an hour of getting bombarded at the Battle of Fort Detroit, was never a commander of the, or elected to president of the United States. Nope, not him. So let's see. I think I'm going to leave it at that. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about the story of how the Star-Spangled Banner came into existence, and then next time we'll get into some of the really, really interesting details on page 3 of Canadian history. So make sure that you do watch the full episode of Canada, People's History, A Matter of Mere Marching. Very, very interesting perspective of the War of 1812 from Canada's perspective, and you'll hear and see a lot of reenactments and so forth. I think it's very, very interesting. I would have included it into this film, but I was afraid that I was going to get copyright violated, and YouTube would have gone, you know, you can't do that. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the one I already have posted the link, and watch the link. Okay, so I wish you guys all very, very well, and I look forward to being able to share our next lesson with you on Thursday. All right, take care.